Hello everybody and welcome back to another Fallout 4 modding video. Today we're checking out yet another one of mine and Pig's mod releases, a brand new gun. Yes, I know we pump these out quite a bit, but this one's really cool. Today we're checking out the Navy submachine gun, but as you may know it, the Swedish K, a brand new mod for Fallout 4. This is one I have seen people asking about for a very long time. And finally, myself and Pig just kind of got the inspiration, hey, maybe we could do that. We found some animations that might fit it, and we made some edits to the main design, and it's a pretty good recreation of the Swedish K. The only difference between this thing and the real one is that it's about an inch shorter. That's really it. It's very much not noticeable, and besides that, I think it's a pretty faithful recreation to the real thing. Now, the Swedish K, if you're not familiar, is a Swedish submachine gun, hence why it is painted green, because for some reason, they really like painting guns green. But hey, I don't mind it. I think it looks pretty cool, and I think it makes for a unique look that we don't really have around the Commonwealth. We have the AK-5C, thanks to AsXaz, but beyond that, not a whole lot of green guns floating around. Now, in real life, this thing is known as the Swedish K, at least by Americans. It's also known as the Carl Gustav M45, and some other names that I just cannot pronounce because they are in Swedish. But as for why it's called the Navy submachine gun in-game, well, actually, interestingly enough, in real life, when the Swedish K was made, we actually wanted a ton of these. The Navy SEALs really liked them way back in the day, and we actually imported a ton of them, and they used them until the import laws made that kind of impossible. So they made their own variant, an American version of the Swedish K. That is not what this is. That thing actually looks way different, but they were sort of the same gun. The point is, they loved this thing, and we wanted a fun name to call it. And also, maybe in Fallout's parallel timeline, the Swedish K never got the import law, and so they just got to keep on using it, and so it became more plentiful in America. Hence why this thing is added to the level list, and you can find it all around the Commonwealth after level 10. This thing will actually spawn on Minutemen, Raiders, Gunners, Triggermen, and of course you can purchase it from vendors. This thing spawns pretty much everywhere. Now, this weapon does use 9mm, which means this is going to be a munitions mod, but it's very fitting. This thing does use 9mm in real life, and it fits a very interesting sandbox, which is that it is a slow-firing, full auto only 9mm option. So it is an SMG, it is dedicated full auto, but it's really slow, so it's a bit more of an early mid-game weapon. It's not pure early game or pure mid-game, it's just kind of a weird niche role that I don't think we have in the vanilla game, and really not much of in the modding scene either. At least not in the form of a full-length SMG or rifle. Now, I did mention custom animations. This thing does use the grease gun animations thanks to Hitman and Deadpool, and they fit pretty well. There is some small inconsistencies with the real-life version of the weapon, and that's really just that you sort of shove your finger into the bolt as opposed to using the charging handle that I did model. I kept the thing as accurate as could be to the real-life weapon so that if anybody does decide to reanimate this thing, they have all the parts they need. But in the meantime, I would say the animations don't look bad at all. I'll be showing those off in more detail later, but I think they look just fine, and it's so fast, you can barely even tell that it's any different. Now, as with all of our mods, this thing does come with a ton of attachments, including 8 attachment categories that you can choose from, with a ton of attachments in each. Additionally, on top of all of the leveled list stuff I talked about earlier, there are 2 uniques in this mod that you can hunt down in the Commonwealth. I'll be giving spoilers for those locations here in a minute. With all that out of the way, I think that covers the basics of this mod, pretty much everything. So let's go ahead and jump in game and start talking about some of the finer details, starting off with this thing's stats. So here we are in game with the Navy submachine gun in its pretty standard configuration. This isn't going to be the worst attachments, but rather how you would find this thing in real life and possibly how you'd find this on Raiders and in the game. This thing has a base damage of about 15. As always, ignore my damage here. There are perk mods in my game that I can't remove. Now then, this thing does use 9mm from munitions. I don't know if there is a rechamber out just yet, but of course you can always make one. My perms are cool with that. This thing has a fire rate of 80 in full auto only, which is pretty slow as far as full auto is concerned. A range of 161, an accuracy of 66, a weight of 5.3 pounds, and a value of 132 cats. So a nice little moneymaker if you can find this thing. Very fun model we got here. Painted green, lots of nice knurling with the wood to contrast it, and a bunch of attachments that make this thing even more interesting than you typically see it, because there's not really a ton of attachments for this guy in real life, so we had to get a little creative, but I think what we came up with was pretty dang neat. I also just love the sheer amount of pins and rivets we've got here. This is quite fun. This is a fun gun to model. Now, before we get on to uniques, let's talk about animations, because this thing is pretty dang neat. Again, this is using the Deadpool grease gun animations for this, so that is going to be pretty much the exact same set. So if you've seen that, you've seen this, but I want to go ahead and show them off anyways for those who aren't familiar, and to see how good it looks on this model, to make sure that this is something you do in fact want to download. So let's start off with a mag dump. As you can see, a pretty interesting slow fire rate there, but the animations fit pretty dang well. They're not perfect, but they're perfect enough for our needs. This thing also has the really, really cool iconic looking first person with those funky front sights, and it's pretty dang accurate as well. We try to shoot at these targets here. Pretty easy to hit all of them with the iron sights. They're very, very usable, but you can, of course, throw on an optic if you take this thing over to the weapons workbench, along with a handful of other attachments that may help with your accuracy, and etc. But first, let's talk about the uniques available in this mod. The first unique we've got today is going to be known as Jormungandr, which is coming from Norse folklore. If you're not familiar with this guy, he is basically the world-eating sea serpent who likes to spit a little poison here and there, and so we tried to reflect that on this gun with a gigantic serpent that actually wraps all the way around the gun with some nice Norse patterns here, and a nice big snake head on the front, and even a Deathclaw skin grip to imitate the scales of a snake, which I think is pretty cool. As for the effect on this guy, it does poison targets for 10 seconds, as Jormungandr is known to do that a little bit. I had to do a little bit of research on what we could actually do for an effect for this guy, but overall I think this comes with a pretty cool unique, with black metal as opposed to the green paint for some nice contrast, and some gold that looks a little bit faded here in the preview menu, but looks a lot nicer in game. This thing comes right off the bat with a rapid receiver and these attachments here. I have to say this thing looks pretty dang good. If you want to get your hands on this one, you need to actually head over to the FMS Northern Star, the Krast ship on the southeast part of the map, and it will be found inside of the boss chest there. So it's actually a new reward for that location that didn't have one in the first place. But now, the next unique we have isn't based on Norse mythology, but rather the Nords from Skyrim, because this is the Fire Breather, which is based on sort of a Skyrim-style unique. It is two-tone black and silver with some ivory grips, and it even has a Thum printed right here on the side, which is actually the Fire Breath shout from Skyrim, hence why it is called the Fire Breather. This thing does have incendiary bullets that will set targets on fire for 15 points of damage. I actually had to recreate that Thum, as there's not really a nice way to bring that over, so that was fun to mark all those markings on there, but it looks pretty cool, I have to say. I really, really dig the vibe of this thing. It doesn't look great in the preview menu with the lighting here, but this is a nice bright silver with black accents. This thing looks really, really cool. The cool thing about both of these uniques, by the way, you can customize the grips and attachments to change the aesthetic if you want. If you want to put a wood grip on here, you can do that. Do whatever you want. Now, if you want to get your hands on this one, it's actually found over in the old Gullet Sinkhole. My idea was there's a Deathclaw there, followed by a cave-based dungeon, and what does Skyrim love? Caves and dragons. And we don't have dragons, but we do have Deathclaws here. So this is pretty much the only thing you're going to get from me in terms of Skyrim modding for now. But it's pretty dang cool, I have to say. I like this one quite a lot. Now then, let's talk attachments over at the weapons workbench, because there's a whole lot of stuff to get through. We have to start off with the receiver section, which is pretty standard, up through powerful. This thing comes in full auto only, so there are not going to be as many variants as some other guns will have, but it's going to mirror sort of the scaling of the vanilla submachine gun, though they are very, very different weapons in terms of performance. Now then, for barrels, we have the short barrel, a short light barrel, a standard light barrel, a long barrel, and a long light barrel. For grips, we have the standard wood grips, comfort grip, which comes in plastic with some nice grooves painted in there. We've got the sharpshooter's grip, which is made out of plum bakelite, the bone grip, which is going to be sort of an ivory bone aesthetic, which actually looks pretty good with the green, surprisingly. I kind of stole this one from Payday 2, but I have to say, I'm quite a fan of how it looks. And then the Deathclaw hide grip, because why not? I thought it was funny, neat. Now then, for magazines, we have the option for a standard magazine, which I believe is 24 rounds. The quick eject magazine, which is also 24 rounds, but has a nice little latch on the front there that you can use to theoretically reload the magazine faster. We have the medium magazine, which I believe is 36 rounds, with its quick eject variant as well. And finally, a quad stack mag, which is going to be 50 rounds, as marked on there by the texture. There's a nice blue 50 to let you know exactly how many rounds you got on there. Then for sights, we have the standard iron sights. We've got glow sights, of course, which are going to be marked there. We've got a hollow sight, a reflex sight, a short scope, and a thermal scope. Since this thing is only in full auto, you don't really need a long scope because you're not going to be able to hit stuff very easily at long range like that, but you do have a short scope at the very least, and this thermal scope that we did feature on our pump action shotgun that does work. I showed that off before, so I don't feel the need to show it off again, but it is a fully functional thermal scope, at least in terms of what we could do in engine. Then for the muzzle category, we have the option for no muzzle, a flash hider, a compensator, a muzzle booster, a muzzle brake, and a suppressor. And let me just say, I am very, very proud of this suppressor. This thing looks super cool with all the holes cut into it. Again, I may or may not have stolen this design from one of the recent Payday 2 updates, but it looks neat on this gun. I gotta say, this thing is pretty dang cool. And finally, that leaves... Never mind, there's more accessories than that. We do have an accessory slot where we can throw on no accessory, a flashlight, a laser, a VATS targeting module, and then, of course, a bipod, because why does this gun need a bipod? I don't know, but I think we thought it was funny. So, if you want to throw on a crazy long stock, the big scope, and a long barrel, you can do that. I don't recommend it, but you can do it. Which brings us to our last category, the stock section, which I completely forgot about. We have the option for no stock, a folded stock, which is going to be the same as the unfolded stock, but of course it is folded over to the side. We've got the unfolded stock, a full stock made out of some scrap metal and wood, all taped together. I have to say, I like this thing quite a lot. Really, really cool design. A recoil stock based on a variant of the Swedish K I found online that looks very, very funky, but hey, it works, I think. And a marksman stock, which adds a nice little cheek rest to the regular stock for better aim with scopes, if you're into that kind of thing. So yeah, guys, that is going to be pretty much everything on the Swedish K, known in-game as the Navy submachine gun. A very, very interesting little SMG that has been a lot of fun to make and a lot of fun to play with. This thing is neat. If you're into this kind of gun, stay tuned. We've got more stuff like it coming at some point in the future. With that, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you want to try this mod out for yourself, you can grab it in the link down in the description below. Again, not sure if there's an Xbox port yet or not, but if there is, you can grab that as well. Until then, you've got the PC version, and anybody can port it whenever they feel like it. With that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope you enjoyed the mod. Consider dropping a like and endorsement respectively. If you enjoy my work, it really helps to support it. But if you'd like to support me directly, you can do so using the link down in the description to support me on Patreon. By no means is this required, of course. It is completely optional, just a way for people to donate if you're into that kind of thing. But if you are, it is there for you. Hope to see you all in the next one. More modding content to come as always, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace!